Hey guys, it's Snowbiter, and this is a replay I had with the AMX M4 49 on Glacier, which is the new map that just came out with the version 1.0 patch. So I wanted to post this replay just to talk a bit about my impressions of this map, since it is still, I mean, the patch has been out for a month, but obviously this map is still relatively new. And I figured I could also talk a bit about the AMX M4 49. This replay does a pretty good job demonstrating its strengths, so I'll probably talk some about that as well. If you're not familiar with it, this tank is a Tier 8 premium French heavy tank. You don't really see too many of them around, but I think the AMX is probably one of the stronger premium tanks in the game at the moment, and I think this replay should make it evident why I think that. But anyway, I'm heading to the north for this game. I haven't played that much on Glacier, and this game was actually only the second time I played this map. But from what I've seen so far, the north seems like a much better brawling area that allows you to actually push forward, while the south seems more exposed and often ends up in a stalemate. I haven't actually gone to the south. I don't think I've really gone there at all at the start of the game, only just toward the end of the game when I'm cleaning up enemy tanks. But my impression is that the far south is a really narrow choke point, and that middle area, or sort of the more open area, is really exposed, and that it's just difficult to kind of make a concerted push. So I've really almost exclusively just gone to the north on this map. I find that it's the best way to both do damage and actually get something out of the game, and it's also better to actually winning the map. So I've gone to this corner here, and you can see, so this is a Tier 8 game, which obviously you don't get very many of these Tier 8 games when you're actually playing a Tier 8 tank now. But in this kind of matchup, the AMX M49 has incredibly strong frontal armor, and so I can just sit here on this corner and let these tanks just shoot at my front, and they're almost always going to bounce unless they happen to either hit the really sort of thin lower plate at the bottom of the tank or the cupola on the top of the turret. But at this range, it's difficult to consistently hit those weak points. Now, I don't have a lot of support here other than those two heavies who went to the top of the sub, and they can really only support me as long as the enemy tanks stay around B2. So I need to be careful about being pushed and potentially surrounded. So as the Centurion starts to move up out in the open, I make sure to try to focus him out, because if the enemy, all 3 or 4 of those enemy tanks actually decide to push me, then I'm completely outnumbered and I'll probably get just overrun. So I put a couple shots into the Cent, and the Dickermax actually, an A1, manages to take him out. And those heavies on top of the sub managed to kill the Leo. So now it's just the KV3 who's in front of me, and he's kind of forced into trying to push me. And I know that as long as I just keep my frontal armor toward him, he's really going to have a lot of trouble penning me. So I didn't even bother repairing my track there when he tracked me, and I'm able to take him out. And now it's just this T-29 is trying to run, and it's just the SU-152 back in A3 left on this flank. So it was a pretty straightforward hold for me, and I managed to farm quite a bit of damage, already over 3k damage. It also helped that those two heavies were able to get flanking shots from B3, although now they're kind of stuck up there because the only entrance to that area is that narrow choke point around D4. I don't really like the way that whole position has been designed. It reminds me a bit of the hill on Cliff, except, unlike the hill on Cliff, you're basically trapped up there. I think only having one narrow entrance to that whole area is a mistake, and because of that, it kind of promotes camping, which I think is just more generally a problem overall with this map. There's so much cover around the bases and so much camo. And obviously this whole middle area is totally wide open that, there's no reason for tank destroyers to leave the base. And it makes it very difficult, if there are multiple tank destroyers in the base still, it makes it very difficult to actually approach the base from either the north or, I'm assuming, the south flank as well. I don't have as much of a sense on the south, but I decided here just to essentially drive straight across out in the open toward the enemy base, because I knew that, or I was pretty confident that the armor on this tank would hold up. But in a lot of situations, you can imagine that if I'd been playing a tank with less armor, or if there were more higher tier TDs in this game, I might have just straight up died trying to cross like this. But the more likely scenario is that I probably would have just been forced to camp in the north and play passively. And I think the fact that that's the case is just poor map design, really. So anyway, I end up making it to the base of this hill relatively unscathed. And looking at the minimap, it looks like my team is probably going to lose the south, so I want to try to take out this Jackson and E25 as quickly as possible, and then I'm thinking that I'll just get on cap to force the enemy tanks to come back to base, because I don't want them to just keep pushing forward and, you know, and overrun our base while I'm trying to chase them down. The Jackson puts a shot into me there. I got lit there, but I thought it was the E25 spotting me. I didn't think that the Jackson would be able to just sit in a bush in that position and light me without getting lit in return. So I lose a bit more HP there, which is kind of annoying. And now I decide I'm just going to get on cap because the E25 is so much more mobile than me, and there are all kinds of hills and camo back there that I don't want to waste too much time trying to track them down. So I'm just going to get on cap and hopefully force the enemy tanks to turn around and deal with me. So this VK is already coming back to engage me, and I managed to put a shot into his lower plate, but now, since I'm completely out in the open with no cover, I'm worried that the E25 might try to flank me while I'm facing the VK. So I immediately start backing up for this ridge while keeping my frontal armor toward the VK. And you can see I'm also checking periodically behind me just so that I have as much warning as possible if the E25 does try to rush me from behind. And I've actually bounced a bunch of shots now from both the VK and I think the IS-6 bounced off me and the T-345M. So I know now that most of the enemy tanks are coming back toward the cap to deal with me. I made a pretty stupid mistake there. I was just kind of lazy with my angling, and as I turned to drive behind cover, I exposed my side to the VK. So he gets a shot into me, which leaves me with about 330 HP, so I can't really afford to make any more mistakes the rest of this game. But now I'm at least back in cover, and I don't have to worry about getting flanked, so now it should be a lot easier for me to dictate any engagement that I get into. So I decided to try to go after this E25. I thought he actually was going to rush me there, but he decides against it at the last second, although I am able to put a shot into him. Now, I was saving my repair kit in case I got tracked, even though my gun was damaged, but I saw that the T-3045M was a one-shot, and I wanted to take him out, so I repaired my gun, and I took a bit of a snapshot at him because I didn't want to give the IS-6 too much time to aim at me, but fortunately my shot connects. Then since the E25 isn't really engaging me, I decided to continue to poke this hill and try to get shots into this IS-6, so I'm able to actually track him while doing damage to him. And he's sort of stuck out in the open, so I put another shot into him. Then the E25 tries to rush me on my side, and he gets one shot into me, but I'm able to turn around quickly enough to get my frontal armor angled toward him. And obviously, he can't really pen my front, so I put one shot into him. He tries to flank around me, but the T-29 behind me gets the kill. And now it's just the IS-6 who's left, and he's a one-shot. I'm pretty confident that he won't be able to pen my armor, but just in case, I decided to try to bait out his shot instead of just going right over the hill and peeking. So I bait out the shot and bounce, and then I take my time and get the final kill shot to take him out. So there's the end of the game, and now I'll show you guys the post-game stats. And here are the post-game stats. This ended up being a really good game with the AMX M4 I think it's definitely the best game I've ever had in this tank. I ended up doing over 6,000 damage, and I got over 800 of base experience. And on top of that, I blocked nearly 6k damage as well, so you can see just how strong this tank's armor can be in this kind of matchup. As long as you're able to keep your front toward the enemy, it's a very difficult tank to deal with. On top of having a pretty good gun, the gun pen is great for a tier 8, and the gun depression is also pretty good. So, all around this tank is really strong. I think the biggest downside to this tank is really the same thing that plagues every single other tier 8 other than the pref matchmaking tanks, is that they just get horrible matchmaking. And so, when you go up against tier 10s constantly, the armor of this tank doesn't really stand out nearly as much. Anyway, I talked a bit about my thoughts on the map Glacier in this video. I think generally it's an interesting map. Obviously, it's very aesthetically pleasing, but I kind of highlighted how I think it just promotes camping too much. There's not nearly enough incentive for people tank destroyers in particular, to leave their base. And I think the middle of the map is just too wide open. There needs to be a bit more cover. I haven't really played too much around in the middle of the map, but I don't really see much point in going there. And like I was talking about toward the beginning of this video, the northern flank seems much more viable to me than the southern flank. So, I think really, regardless of tank class, except for maybe light tanks, the northern flank seems to just be the best place to go. Although, of course, that could all change as people continue to play the map more. But anyway, that's about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoy the replay and enjoy the commentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.